Hi there, welcome to Boxing Deep Dive. I'm Lyndon Hosking, and great to have you along for another episode of Classic Fights. This is where we go back in time and revisit some of the best fights in history and just cover what made them great. I'm joined this week by two co-hosts instead of one last week. Grant Tazzy Brown is back. How are you, Tazzy? And of course, Mike Altamura.
I'm good, thanks, Lyndon, mate. Good to be back. Sorry I missed last week, but it's always good to talk boxing with two of my favourite people. Mike Altamura, the crazy mad scientist, and Lyndon, 96 Atlanta Olympian Hoskins.
Hosking, actually, not Hoskins.
Hoskins, sorry, mate, sorry.
It's all right, I get it all the time.
I think I introduced you to Fernando Vargas as Lyndon Hosking.
Hosking, all right, that's good. We wouldn't have cared anyway. But Mike, it was pretty good last week. We did the show live. We're not game enough to do it this week because we've got T Brown up the top there. But it was good. We had a bit of feedback. It was and the response from everyone out there was really good, and they appreciated what we did. So.
We'll definitely require a mute button if we're going live with Tazzy, but yeah. It was good. It was nice to do something a little different, like you said, just kind of present some engagement with the listeners, and it's good for them. Keeps them in tune and keeps them involved with this program.
Yeah, well, I didn't expect really anyone to watch because I just decided probably about 5 minutes before we went on air to say, all right, well, because I wanted to test it for the Talking Boxing show, whether we could get people on the interview, and I pushed the button and it was great. So we might even, I'm sure Tazzy will behave himself if we go live. We'll give it another try anyway.
I don't know what's all this Tazzy this, Tazzy that, like, mate. I'm not that bad. I mean, I do know how to talk and act in public. I do work for Fight Hype now too, guys.
That's right.
So I know.
Seconds out as well, was it?
Oh yeah, well, I'm just kind of trying to fight off for now.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, Fight Hub. So check out the latest interviews. Fight Hype, sorry, Fight Hype. So Tazzy's covering the Cambosis Haney rematch this week, so make sure you jump on YouTube and
Fight Hype. That's right. Yeah.
And check them out. All right, so on to this week's episode, guys. We had a good response last week. We had a few comments from people that had never sort of heard of either fighter, Mike, so it was great that you chose a Eusebio. Is that how you pronounce it? Eusebio Pedrosa Juan Laporte?
Eusebio Pedrosa.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, it's got to be primary to our job on this program is to educate the fans. So if we can present them with what was really one of the sleeper, underrated fights of the 80s, why not? You know, people always go to the obvious choices, which is understandable, but occasionally it's nice just to slip in that kind of contest.
Yeah, it's been good. Sorry, Tazzy.
Mike, do I educate people as well?
In between your rants, you definitely educate them.
But it was good. I asked you Pedrosa's pronunciation because growing up I used to call him Eusebio. So that's how it sort of looks to me. And I think Juan Laporte was Juan Laporte.
Yeah.
You know, growing up.
It's the way we were, though. Like, I remember, so there was a heavyweight in the mid-90s called Courage Shabalala. And I remember seeing his name in the magazine. I'm like, Courage Tashabalala. And then when I started hearing him pronounce it, I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot.
Well, we talk about it on the show all the time, Tazzy. When we were growing up, there was no YouTube, there was no live fights or even replays of fights of all these guys, so we never heard the commentators actually pronounce their names. So I remember Bobby Ches. I used to call him Bobby Sizz, I think I used to call him. It was Bobby Ches.
What about Esteban de Jesus?
Yeah, it was de Jesus. Yep, Esteban de Jesus. Yep. But anyway. Anyway, so we'll move on with tonight. So tonight, no mistaking this one. I've cherry-picked this one a little bit, guys. I can't believe we actually haven't had this fight before. It's our man, of course, KOSTYA, and he's in against ZAB Judah, arguably his biggest fight at that stage. It took place at Las Vegas at the MGM Grand, November 3, 2001, for the World Junior Lightweight Championship. And Tazzy, what was it, WBA, WBC, IBF then? So I think KOSTYA was WBA, WBC, is that right? And Judah was IBF?
That's correct, yeah. Look, this is pretty special for me. You know, my history with KOSTYA, you know, love him like a brother. I spoke to him the other night, FaceTime, because I filmed the Nikita fight for him on KO.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, because he thought I'd be there, so I'm not at this one. Sorry, KOSTYA. Can you film? I said, yes, my brother. Yeah, look, I mean, you know, KOSTYA, I sparred KOSTYA in 97, before his first loss to Vince Phillips for the IBF title. He changed everything, changed his training methods. He started going to AOS in Canberra a fortnight before just to start the training camp with strength conditioning. He wasn't going to let that mistake happen again. And he said from then, I'm destined to win all the belts and be undisputed. Back then it was the 3-belt era. And he did. I mean, he started off, I think the first one was was it the Cuban? Was it the Cuban, the first one?
The first...
Diabelis Hurtado was an interim world title.
Jake Rodriguez was his first one.
No, that was first.
Tasman to bounce back.
After
Yeah,
Phillips, sorry. Yep.
Then he
Diabelis
beat Shanbei Mitchell for the WBA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he beat Gonzalez, I think, for the full WBC, McCollum Gonzalez. So
Yep.
then it was ZAB Judah. Now, look, our good friend Robbie Peden told me about ZAB Judah. Well, actually, he didn't tell me. He told Justin Rousseau, who was actually, I was staying at Justin Rousseau's house for a little bit. And I think Robbie Peden rang up from America, and him and Justin are Olympian friends, obviously, from Barcelona. And he said, there's a guy called ZAB Judah. He's a Pernod Whitaker with power. So I paid attention to this guy. And I thought, geez, this guy is unbelievable. And there was so much hype about ZAB Judah being the future of boxing. He walked to the ring with Mike Tyson with everyone, and yeah, mate, this was a classic fight, but this was the last piece of the puzzle for KOSTYA, which KOSTYA called it. He said, "It's my destiny. It is my destiny."
Well, it certainly was, Mike. As we keep, actually, I'll wait till I put on the round one there, but just sort of lay it all out for us here, because as TSZYU just said about Costa's build up with ZAB Judah, like he'd won the world title, but his resume was nowhere near Costa's was. It was probably more potential rather than hardcore wins at that stage.
Yeah, but I think that when you stack it up, and what Taz is saying is accurate. I mean, ZAB had that groundswell of support by the American boxing community, and although KOSTYA was an outstanding fighter, he was able to, by this stage, prove that night against Vince Phillips really was an aberration. You know, the wins, solid wins. One of the wins we didn't mention then, Taz, was against Rafael Ruelas, who a lot of people perceived as a 50-50 fight, and KOSTYA completely dismantled him. But he made a lot of adjustments after Phillips, but there was always kind of, I guess, a wisdom or a lack of wisdom in hindsight, but a wisdom at the time in the industry that KOSTYA was like a bottom half of the top 10 pound-for-pound guy at best, and ZAB Judah was a potential 1 or 2 in future. So that's how a lot of people stacked this fight up. The other thing was they'd fought on a number of the same cards in the build-up, and to your point, Judah was fighting lesser competition but was blitzing them, and KOSTYA was kind of having some ho-hum moments. So to give you an example, KOSTYA struggled a little bit with Shanbei Mitchell. Before Shanbei Mitchell's knee gave out, KOSTYA stopped him, was in the 7th round.
Yeah.
Judah fought on the same card that KOSTYA defended against Ahmed Santos of Mexico. Yeah, and it was a good stoppage, but it was kind of a dour stoppage, a dour beatdown. Judah iced Jan Bergman, former KOSTYA victim. And then the previous card to this, so KOSTYA struggled with Oktay Urkel, very underrated fighter, Olympian, dual Olympian from Turkey. And KOSTYA got hit a lot, especially the last 4 or 5 rounds in that fight. And Judah absolutely blitzed Alan Vesta from Denmark. Vesta was 21-0-1, completely padded record, but optically it looked like Judah was the star. People figured the hand speed, how hittable KOSTYA looked against Urkel. And that was the interesting part, is realistically probably, I would say for the first time in KOSTYA's career, this would be the first bout he entered where he was a significant underdog, both by the betting odds and also the mainstream fight public just felt like he was going to struggle with the speed. He wasn't, although we knew he was a great fighter, adept at fighting southpaws, he wasn't known as a southpaw assassin by this stage. So, of course, we're going to be in for a treat.
Just looking at TSZYU there. Hang on, we might just pull. There's over there. All right, well, let's get into the fight itself. First round, obviously, it only went a couple of rounds. I'm not going to spoil the party, but I think if you're a boxing fan, you know the results. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone. Let's start with round one. And Tazzy, what struck me straight away is what Mike was saying about the speed factor. Look, at the end of the day, it's a 12-round fight, so we don't get too caught up in it. But the thing right off the bat was just how quick that Judah was compared to KOSTYA at that stage.
Yeah, look, I mean, ZAB was fast, powerful, explosive, and KOSTYA's known for his power and his timing and his experience. But the Americans really thought this was the homecoming for ZAB Judah. This was meant to be his coming out party, but KOSTYA spoiled the party. I watched it with a group of mates, and I think everyone but me was all thinking ZAB Judah was going to blitz him. I still had the faith in KOSTYA, that he was still that great champion, and I knew he always had that power, and he loved southpaws. But Judah got off to a fast start, landed an uppercut, landed a few punches when KOSTYA was going back. Probably wasn't that. Probably looked a bit more than what it was, but it definitely, got the crowd up and about and probably impressed the judges. But I mean, but if you watch right before the end of round one, KOSTYA lands a right hand, and that sets the tone of the second round.
Yeah, and Mike, with as I said, with the speed factor, but I think KOSTYA even said in the interview after the fight that he did get tagged with a couple. He definitely lost the first round, but he didn't panic, and he knew that he could land that right hand.
Yeah, and I think that
There's the uppercut
you can
there.
even. It's funny watching this in hindsight compared to in real time. I think that in real time there was that panic just because of how speedy and explosive Judah was, but also because of Judah's body of work. He had a very high knockout ratio at this stage of his career, was very explosive, had a lot of just flashy 1-2 punch combination stoppages. And, like I said, Zoo looked a bit vulnerable in that bout with Urkel. And, there was always that talk of that he was very, very easy to time down the center, which, people always said he had the best offense in boxing, but because he had the best offense, he was very available defensively, and it was just, could he tuck up in this fight, or what was going to be his way to reach Judah? I thought that, like to Tazzy's point, I think as this round's going on, even watching it now, you can see the KOSTYA starting to warm in and find his range.
Yeah, well, that's right, isn't it, Tazzy? You can see KOSTYA's not panicked. He would have seen this 100 times before, and he's like, yeah, okay, I'm wearing a few, and yeah, okay, the speed's maybe a little bit more than what I maybe thought it was, and whatever. But, I mean, it's a 12-round fight. You can see KOSTYA just getting his range, getting his timing, and just easing into what he thinks is going to be a long fight.
KOSTYA and Team Zoo knew how fast ZAB is. They'd seen him fight. They fought in the same show, so they knew this young kid is going to be very fast, especially early. But, a super professional like KOSTYA knows that gradually the right hand, you can wear a guy down, and eventually, there's going to be a time in the fight where ZAB's going to have to sort of stand and fight a bit. Happen a bit quicker than what we expected. But, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, you don't get over one round in boxing. It doesn't mean nothing. He got hit with a couple of punches. Yeah. He held his composure. KOSTYA's so experienced as an amateur and a professional. He'd been at this level for so long. ZAB's a great guy. I love ZAB as a person, great guy. But ZAB, mentally, I don't think was at, I don't think he was mentally ready for a fight of this magnitude, and definitely not ready for KOSTYA. He went on later on to unify the division. He beat Corey Spinks. He gave Floyd Mayweather one of his toughest fights to date. But look, KOSTYA was a beast at this weight. He loves southpaws. And if you're in front of KOSTYA, if he hits you with that right hand, like I said against Manny or anyone, you're going.
And we'll start round two there. And Mike, one thing I loved actually seeing, and I put it on didn't put on for time constraints, but the MGM Grand, and there's the Aussie flags, and I spotted a few people that we sort of know in the crowd. It was just awesome, and I sort of experienced a little bit of that when Horn fought Crawford. But how good it would have been back then to be at the MGM Grand and seeing this live would have been awesome.
I think especially in that era, it was very different. We're back at round one now.
Oh, is this round one? Sorry, let's go to round two. Apologies for that. Oh, there we go. Round two.
I was just thinking. I don't
Round
recall
two.
Johnny Lewis
I
ever
thought-
hugging a fighter before round two.
Is Peter Maniata still in the video footage?
Yeah, sorry about that. I hit the wrong button. Apologies for that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that now we're just kind of normalised because the world's so much smaller with the internet, with the availability of travel. I know the last couple of years have been different, but the availability of travel, everywhere's reachable. 20 years ago, to meet a fellow Australian when you're on the road was a big deal.
Yeah.
So to see an Australian flag, to have that sense of national pride and Australiana was very, very special in that era.
And I love too, Tazzy, the Russian singer before the fight. Again, I didn't put on because it just takes too much time.
I love that song.
Yeah, she sung, was it Something Worth Fighting For?
Something Worth Fighting For.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah.
I love that song, and I used to play that before a few of my pro fights. That was a great song, and the crowd got behind it.
Yeah.
That's KOSTYA's very dear friend, and she is a famous Russian singer.
Did she write that song?
She wrote the song for KOSTYA.
Yeah.
Something Worth Fighting For. It's I'm gonna knock you out tonight.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And I remember, even though, 21 years ago, Mike, I remember actually that with that song playing when he come out, it just sent chills down the back of the neck when he came out. And, and looking at the footage, see a young Glenn Jennings in there as well. It would have been great to actually have him on. I only thought about today when I was editing the last bit of it. It would have been great to have him on. But, Mike, just the Aussies there and the song and the KOSTYA and the look at, it was just an unreal experience on TV. It would have been even better to be in the building.
Yeah, and I think that especially by this stage of KOSTYA's career, and you guys know even better than me, I mean, I know KOSTYA now is back in Russia, but I think even we see it with how the country's embraced his sons, Tim and Nikita. KOSTYA wasn't Russian at this stage to anyone in Australia. He was an Aussie. He was fully embraced by all people in our country. And so you rode every blow with him, and every time he got hit, you felt it through the screen. Every time he landed a shot, a glint of excitement coursed through your veins. And I think especially if you're ingrained to the fight community, especially someone like Tazzy who grew up, kind of around them within the industry then, in Australia out of Johnny Lewis's gym. So it's special when you see someone you're so familiar with competing on the grandest stage of them all.
Right, well, we're down to about 25 seconds here, so this is probably, obviously it's almost coming to the end, but you can almost see Tazzy that ZAB Judah, he thinks he's got his range, he's got KOSTYA covered, and he slipped across, he didn't have his left hand up, and paid the price. Here it comes in a second here.
It just misses here.
Yeah, and boom.
Made the same mistake twice.
Yeah, down he goes. Way straight off. And there's obviously some controversy about this that we'll get into in a second, but that's the fight right there and then. It's called off and all hell breaks loose.
We've got to show the second fight now.
Yeah, well, here it comes there. Yeah. And, so you see there, obviously, ZAB Judah, couldn't believe that it had been stopped. What's your feedback on it, Tazzy? We'll get into the interviews and all that in a second, but initial thoughts of the stoppage?
Correct stoppage. That wonky's eyes glazed, talking to someone, then going down for a second time. I don't care about the round coming to an end like Chavez and Mildred Taylor.
Yep.
Going down a second time and being so, days where he's like looking and talking to someone. Mate, I think it was a right stoppage. Regardless of time, one more stronger punch, if it was continued, really puts him in a lot of trouble. I think it was the correct stoppage.
Mike, because I'll get a little bit of what the referee said in a second, but obviously it was like the Chavez-Taylor controversy. When he got up, apparently it was at 0. So if the referee had Joe Nader, is it Joe Nader? Joe Nader. Joe Nader, sorry. Had have actually looked, but my argument, like Tazzy said then, it was a right stoppage because it's not up to him to be looking around to get signals off anyone or anyone else. His job is to assess the fighter as he stands in front of him and decide whether he can continue or not. And the fact that he went down, and not just down, he went down hard with that confused look on his face. I'm with Tazzy. I think it was a good stoppage. What do you think?
Here's the thing. People can argue that he would have made it to his feet, deserved the chance to get back to the corner and recover.
Oh.
Call that the referee needs to make on the fly. Now, the one thing we know is that he went down 2 times from 1 punch. But if Jane 80 didn't catch him on the second rise, he would have gone down a 3rd time. Look at how shaky his legs were.
Yeah.
So, of course, once he recovered because he was stabilized, he can argue, but I would question if he was even going to beat the count. I think he would have fallen again. And I think it was the right call. Then other factors come into play, second concussion syndrome and things of that nature. But when you look at it, Jane 80 had a split-second decision to make. And ZAB Judah, whether lack of experience or concussion or a mixture of both, didn't handle the knockdown how you should in order to be able to continue. Fair stoppage.
Well, let's have a look at what the referee had to say now, and he's not giving much away. This is what he had to say. I think.
Was it because he went down a 2nd time after the first knockdown?
There was only 1 knockdown. He went down twice, but the reason I stopped the fight was because he was almost unconscious when he went down the first time, and his equilibrium was so bad the 2nd time that I was concerned about the 2nd concussion syndrome, and I thought that if he got hit again, he might have some real damage.
Is there a rule in Nevada that if a fighter wobbles down for a 2nd time that the referee has the discretion to stop the fight?
The referee has the discretion to stop the fight at any time.
Well, let me rephrase that. Do you have to stop the fight? Is it a must that you stop the fight?
I'm not certain what you're trying to get at, but when the fighter can't defend himself adequately, I have to stop the fight. That's the rule.
I guess what I'm asking is there a rule that says if a fighter goes down twice off of 1 knockdown, is there a rule that says that you must stop the fight?
No, it's the safety of the fighter that I'm most concerned about, and that's why we stopped the fight.
So, were you aware that there was no time left in the round, that the round had ended when you waved it off?
I was aware that the fighter was hurt, and I just didn't want him to take any more punishment. Like I say again, the 2nd concussion syndrome, the 2nd punch syndrome after a bad punch like that, he could have been hurt, and that was my only concern.
So, look, he's standing his ground there, and look, you can see that the commentator, or whatever he is, the interviewer, is trying, Mike, to get the reaction from him and pretty much admit that he got it wrong, but he was standing his ground. I thought he handled himself very well.
He asked the same question 7 different ways and got the same answer.
He did, didn't he? Yeah. Oh, look, it's one of those things, isn't it, Tazzy? You could make an argument either way, but like he stated there, he's a referee. His job's not to know how long there is to go or anything like that. His job is to know, well, I suppose it is to know when they're actual fighting, but when a fighter hits the deck, it's his job then to assess whether the fighter is in a condition to continue or he's not, and he was in no condition to continue at all.
100%, mate. I mean, imagine how much the crowd, the lights, the cameras, the fight, the referee, it's a lot going on, and he's just there to make a judgment, and like Milty Taylor Chavez, and in this case, he made the right judgment. I mean. No disrespect to ZAB because he's a great guy and his father Yoel, but obviously I'm a ZAB man through and through. Got the TSZYU t-shirt on now, and Costa's a brother for life for me. But it was the right, regardless, it was the right result, and it was a great moment in history for Australian boxing and KOSTYA. After Jeff Fenwick retired, KOSTYA was our saviour. Australian boxing could have won in a very quiet time, but here was this young, broken English-speaking, Russian Aussie who had 300 amateur fights, who was a world champion as an amateur, who had power like we hadn't seen before in Australia, knocking everyone out and fast-tracked his career fighting ex-world champions, some still very good. Quite early in his career, won Laporte, Livingston, Bramble, Hector Lopez. He was, Australia fell in love with him, and and like you said, Mike, how they are towards Tim and Nikita. This was a special night in my life. Watching it, I wasn't there. Seeing our good friend Glenn Jennings, shout out to Glenn.
Yeah.
and Johnny Lewis, my dear friend as well, my former coach, Peter Matreski Senior. I think Baby Matreski Jr.
I saw him in the
there.
crowd. Yeah.
Yeah, Baby. Everyone, mate. It was just a great time in our history and a good pick tonight, Lyndon.
All right, let's hear what Costa said there, Mike, before I let you comment.
Steve KOSTYA is very, very happy with this, but it was a very, very controversial ending. Almost reminiscent of the Meldrick Taylor, Julio Cesar Chavez ending in 1990 with a few seconds left. There was no time left on the clock when it was stopped. What about winning in this manner? Is it satisfying to you to win like this?
When you fight for undisputed champion of the world, great opponent out in the second round, this is great result. And I believe why it's happened, because hours and hours and hours in preparation, dedication, motivation, just particularly for this particular moment. As I said in the press conference, this is my destiny. And I really believe this. I really believe that this is my destiny, and it is my destiny.
Okay, we're going to take a look at the knockdown. You tell me what's going on here, Costa. Go ahead, Costa.
Yeah, I'm just very. You see its first right hand nearly comes through, and this is right on the chin. I've seen he's become a little lazy in the beginning. I've seen how he come in, and look at him. He's really look at his eyes. Look at his eyes. Referee done the right decision to stop the fight. Otherwise, he will.
So could have kept going on there, but it's like the referee, Mike. He handled it with class.
I don't like how the commentator's trying.
No, he's trying to get a response.
That's why Tim Smith was gone from Showtime within a year and replaced again by Jim Gray. So, that's firstly he's bumbling the hell through all the interviews. Shut up, mate. The second thing is, to me, I don't know about you guys, that's a crowning moment of a guy's career, and he's just focusing on a very, very disrespectful tone. And I thought that KOSTYA handled it with absolute class and swung it around. But I think that shouldn't be your opening stance. Opening stance should be how you feel, what's this moment mean to you, and then say, look. and then say, look, there's a hint of controversy. Judah obviously feels it was early. There's, conjecture about it. What do you think? Not, it was controversial, it was this. All those insinuations are based on his opinion, not on fact.
And look, we'd probably see it again, in 2017 when Jeff Horn beat Manny Pacquiao, exactly the same. And I think the common sort of theme amongst both of them is that the Aussie's gone over there and upset the apple cart of the favourite, and we can't handle that, so we're going to do our best to bring him down. And like Costa, Jeff Horn handled himself very well as well. So let's hear from ZAB Judah, and then you can comment, Tazzy.
Thank you very much, Steve. And ZAB is much calmer than he was in the ring. So we're going to try to find out your thoughts on the stoppage. How badly hurt were you from the knockdown?
I mean, I'm in a world title fight. I got hit with a good shot. You know what I mean? I went down, but I was for sure that I was up. You know what I'm saying? In time, I just felt I was never given a chance for a count. You know?
But there is no standing 8 count in Nevada.
I mean, he just stopped it. He just, you fall and that's it?
So you thought it was an early stoppage?
No, it was an early stoppage. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You see, quickly, I got my head back together. And, I was ready to go back again. You know what I mean? He just looked, he walked up to me and just said, it's over. I mean, you can't do that.
There's no standing 8 count in Nevada, but there is a count.
That's Gary Shaw.
I bust out a count. I mean, what the hell? Nothing. It's over.
Gary Shaw.
Did you get up too quickly? I mean, did you?
I mean, maybe from lack of experience, I got up quickly. But you see, shortly after that, I was ready to go again. You know what I mean?
Let's see it. That's what I'm looking
you
forward
just
to
waved
there.
it off. That was crazy. You know what I mean?
Okay, we're going to take a look at the knockdown right now. So you tell me what's going on, Zach.
I mean, I got, I was jabbed. I think I pulled straight back, which my dad would tell me to keep my hands up. I got hit with a good shot. I got hit with a shot pulling back, I bet you. You know what I mean? But, okay, good. I got hit with a shot pulling back, okay? I went down. Maybe I got up too fast, okay?
You're a little wobbly here.
Yeah, I mean, you hurt. Yeah, okay. And, I mean, I was, I was wobbly. You know what I mean?
Not much you could say about that, Mike. Yeah, I was a little wobbly.
Tazzy, you go first.
I was a little wobbly, Tazzy.
Gary Shaw's always got something to say. Very, 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 always a huff and puff. Yeah, mate, nothing he can say really. Like I said, Zab's a great guy. He was a great fighter.
Yeah.
He was in a great era. Fought everyone from Cotto to Mayweather to everyone. But he there's nothing he could say. I mean, he got hit, went down hard, got up. One of the weirdest things I've ever seen in boxing, like turning, talking to someone, looking, pointing, then went down again. He's got no legs to stand on. It's literally has got no legs to stand on. It's a fraud, mate. Look, there's no way you can undermine KOSTYA's great victory. The undisputed championship. We don't care about 4 belts these days, and let's do 10 belts one day. This was the 3 belt era, and KOSTYA had them all. And then later on, Victor Chinian had them as well.
Mike?
I was just going to say that I hope that the listeners out there don't judge or gauge firstly ZAB Judah's accomplishments or his character by that interview, because he probably should. Firstly, he shouldn't have even been interviewed because he was probably in a concussed state. But secondly, to me, I respect him, if anything, out of that, because both you guys have been on the end of heartbreaking losses in your careers. You know, and the thing is, if someone put a microphone in front of you when you felt, whether right or wrong, you felt in your heart you're on the short end of the stick, you might not have handled it the best either. And I think that if anything, that just showed ZAB's drive and his hunger and his desire to be great. And he'd come back to be great. He'd come back to be multiple-time world champion at 140 pounds, went on to be undisputed welterweight world champion, defeating Corey Spinks in what was considered a slight upset at the time, and had what I believe will be a Hall of Fame career. So, you know, hats off to ZAB, but I think that just gives us a context of what an outstanding accomplishment it was by KOSTYA.
It was, yeah. So, as I said before, Taz, it would have been great to have Glenn Jennings on. I didn't even give it a thought, but anyway, maybe next time we have a KOSTYA fight. But that's it for this week. What a memorable afternoon it was for all of us, of course. We watched it on a Sunday afternoon here in Australia, but what a great night it would have been. And I really envy all the Aussies that were in the crowd that night. It would have been great. But Tazzy, we're back to you next week. I'm not sure whether you got anything in mind at the moment, but it's all right. We can save it till next week. But you're up.
Yeah.
And look forward to another episode then. So thanks again, guys, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys.